from the All Indiana Podcast Network.
It's time for real conversation about the real issues that affect our communities.
Poverty, education, equality, and more.
This is Real Talk.
Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Welcome to Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network. I'm Reverend Charles Harrison, and on this episode, I will be talking to the Pike Township Trustee, Annette Johnson. She is up for re-election, and we want to talk a little bit about all the work that she has been doing in Pike Township and what it means to be a trustee.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Allie Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Welcome to Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison, and I am so excited today with the special guest that I have. My special guest is certainly a good friend of mine. We have been knowing each other for years now, and it's just an honor to have her here on my podcast today, and that is Annette Johnson, who is the Pike Township Trustee. She is now running for re-election. In my opinion, she is one of the best trustees in the city, if not the best trustee in the city. She has an extensive professional background. She served with the Marion County Sheriff's Department as a program educator specialist. She also worked for the Indiana Department of Education as a outreach education specialist for 4 years. She also worked for IPS, the Indianapolis Public School, worked in the classroom as an educator for 13 years. She also works for the Center for Leadership Development, a student career facilitator for 5 years. She's been very, very active in the Democratic Party, and her resume there is so long, we will not get into all of it, and she will have a chance to share a little bit about her resume. But I want to welcome to the show today and to this podcast, Real Talk with Reverend Harrison, my friend Annette Johnson. Hello, Annette.
Hello there. Thank you, Pastor Harrison, for this opportunity. So good to see you today. And again, I just want to commend all the great work that you do in the community and just working with our youth and your church, your community. I mean, the list goes on and on for you as well.
Well, thank you for coming. And let's talk a little bit, as you share a little bit about your background and how you came to be, the trustee of Pike Township. So share a little bit about your background. Then we can kind of get in more of the questioning and talking about other issues.
Well, I mean, it started from, I would say, many, many years ago when I was a youngster. I would say around 10 years old, just working in the community with my grandmother and my mother, who are very involved in their community, more of a community-based type of leaders is what they were. And my mother always teased me and just said, you took it to another level. Of course, you liked working in the community with us and feeding the homeless, giving out clothing, mentoring and tutoring. My mom did a lot of that in the community aspect, and I just would be right alongside with her on Saturday mornings doing that with her. So again, my mom would tease me and say, I knew you would go to another level where you probably wanted to run for office and serve your community in that capacity. And so that's pretty much where it all began.
So you have worked in education. Now, you decided to become, an elected official. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, though, is that as you sought to become trustee of Pike Township, you ran against the slate. In doing that. And I know a lot of people don't do that, run against the slate. What kind of motivated you to take that risk? Because that seemed to be a very bold risk when you were, intricate part of the party, and yet you went against a 16-year incumbent and you took that risk. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, just like you said, I've been very involved in the Democratic Party. Come from a long list of Democrats in my family, and so I believe in the principles of a Democratic Party. Just about worked on everybody's campaign that you can think of, and when I moved into Pike Township, I knew I wanted to get involved, and so I did run for a township board, which is now the township board that is checks and balances for the trustee's office as well. So I sat in that spot for 14 years and saw just how much you could really do as a trustee. Of course, a trustee administers poor relief. We pay utility bills, mortgages, prescription drug. We fill those for people. You can work with the school district, school uniforms. And so sitting in that spot as an elected official in the advisory board role, I was like, a trustee can do a lot. It's like a mini mayor of your community. And with Pike Township being so rich with the diversity and the number of people that are moving into Pike Township, every year, I just wanted to do more than just have an office at 56 and Lafayette Road where the trustee just sat there in her office and, of course, do things. But I wanted to, what else can I do to serve the community and make the community better, along with the fire department that I also oversee as a trustee as well. So that's where, my mind just got to thinking I can do so much more. Of course, I knew it would be a hard road. And even before I decided to do that, I had thought about it 4 years previous to 2018 when I thought about running, but I kind of sat back and said, well, maybe I'm not ready. And I think a lot of that conversation was the party leaders telling me I wasn't ready.
Okay.
And then I thought, you keep hearing that, you just say, well, let me sit back and wait. But as we fast forward to 2017, around 2018, that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to do it, without the leaders of the party backing me or telling me I can do it. I don't think elected, officials and leaders in a party should tell you what you can't do and what you cannot do, or you have to wait your turn or your time. Where I had been serving on that township board for 14 years. I think I waited enough time to make my stance and step out. And so I just, stepped out on faith. We had a lot of grassroots because that's where I come from. I kind of knew how to navigate in that area and just put together a team that felt like we can do this. And so we did that in 2018. And you're right, we beat the 16-year incumbent. We felt like David and Goliath. You know that biblical story. Yeah. I'm David, and I'm going through, against this big giant of a political party, a political machine is what they call it. And we were very successful. And, just having other races, beforehand, because I ran in 2005, 2010, and I always kind of came up short. But again, I was, underneath the ream of the party, and it just felt like, it's time for me to step out, and that's what I did.
So let's talk about this, because I think a lot of people out there may have desires to get involved in politics, and may be fearful, because I know you hear a lot of people feel like they're not giving that kind of opportunity. So when you ran, you had to end up running not just against the incumbent, but the party itself, right? Here in Marion County. Okay.
Yes.
What were the challenges of doing that for you?
Just about every challenge you could think of. You're not able, again, what our parties do is they have a pre-primary convention, which, I'm hoping people understand. We have a primary that's always held in May. And to me, that's when the community, your residents, people in your area where you're running, they decide. You're not a small group of people from the party decide, well, this is who we're going to put out And then that person would represent everyone. It's like the people in your community and the voters don't get a say. And I don't think, to me, that's voter suppression, because you're suppressing their vote and you're allowing the party to pick who should represent you. No, the people should represent who they want. And it should be fair. It should be open. It should be done, again, made primary election. And then whoever wins, if 2, 3, 4 people want to run, then allow those individuals to run. And then who wins the primary, you get behind them and you support them all the, to November general election. But again, that doesn't happen in the party. They have a pre-primary before you get to the primary.
So is that slating?
That's slating,
okay,
but they call it, we don't, it is slating, that's the name. And, even though you try to hide it and
right.
you try to disguise the name,
right.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So doing that process, if you go through that process and you don't win, you cannot run in the primary in May. Okay.
Right, because you have signed a pre-primary list or a document saying that I want, I won't step out, even though you may say I know I'm the best candidate. You just can't, and I don't feel like I should have to sign any papers to say I'm running. This is a free country. We have so many of our forefathers that have died for us for the right to vote. I don't think I should have someone tell me what I can do and what I cannot. And so I'm not, into signing any paperwork. And so when you don't do that, you kind of just step out on your own.
So during this process, which you didn't go through, isn't there also some kind of fee to go through this pre-convention or slating process, which I'm going to call it slating because I'm, I have been public about being against that. I don't think that's really democracy. I think
exactly.
like you, that the voters ought to decide who their elected official is going to be. So you have to pay some amount to go through that.
Yeah, they call it you have to pay to play.
You got to pay to play. Okay, pay to play.
And again, if we're a party of leaders and individuals and elected officials that are doing our jobs in the community, we shouldn't have to harass someone to pay a big substantial amount of money to participate. Because if we're doing our jobs as a party, we're doing fundraisings throughout the year and so forth, and individuals are able to give. Like me, I don't have an issue with giving, my party monies because it's all helping us get our word, our message out. But I don't want to be handcuffed. And then if I don't win, you get to keep some of the money and then you're not able to even run in the primary election.
So do you get any of the money back if you're not selected?
You do get just a portion of it, but again, they've already spent some of it because they needed it for materials and convention fees and all that stuff. So yeah, you do get some of it back, but again, depending on the level of your position, it could be a lot of money that you could use in your campaign and the finances for your campaign.
So in this year's election process, before I get to specific questions about you, you have an opponent.
Yes.
You have an opponent that's running against you.
That was slated through the party.
So that person was slated through the party. So you didn't go through this time even as an incumbent.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what I'm very confused about. And mine's is very, very tricky and it's very different because this hasn't happened before.
Okay.
Just imagine you have an incumbent.
What do you mean hasn't happened? Go explain that to
because you haven't had an incumbent going through the process and then the party is endorsing someone else.
Wow.
How can you endorse someone when you already have an incumbent running? So now we have to me, a very confusing message out here to our voters in Pike Township. Trustee Johnson, which is your trustee right now, is the incumbent running for re-election, and then the party still endorses someone behind that. So that's what's very confusing. That's going to confuse voters tremendously.
So I guess the question, Trustee Johnson, did the party really embrace you?
No.
After you won your election?
No.
Okay.
I just feel like, when you go up against, again, David and Goliath, I worked hard. I worked every ounce of sweat that I could to be successful. Walking, the community, the neighborhoods, being out there. I'm a very transparent trustee. And I just think that for whatever reason, I don't know, and I don't have the answer to that. Even after, the 3 and 4 years that I've been in this office, and I've done so much to make the office look very well and very good, and just to feel like I still can't get that support is very disheartening to me as a Democrat and as an elected official and as a leader in my community. You
were a part of a group of black elected officials that held a press conference at the State House expressing some concern about the current Marion County chair, who is also running for a public office. Can you share a little bit about what the concerns were? And then we kind of want to get into a lot of your accomplishments as the trustee over the last almost 4 years.
Well, our concerns was you have, the chair of the party that pretty much is the overseer, guides our, Democratic Party, and then that particular person is also running for a position as well.
Okay.
And that position was a little different because she already is in a position. She's the Marion County Recorder. But now she's running for the clerk. The clerk oversees elections. So you could see how sticky that could look to people. You run in the elections and then you're running as well.
So she would, if she won, she would be over the elections, but yet also the chair of the Marion County Democratic Party. Yeah, that seems like a conflict of interest.
Yeah, conflict of interest.
Yes.
And I know there's no law that establishes that, and that's why they were trying to put some type of legislation in this particular session, to see if we could combat that, because there is no law. But it just kind of, to me, makes you think it's unethical, conflict of interest, because that particular person does control, the elections and the pre-primary convention and who can run, who cannot run, why we're not going to slate you or why you're not going to be slated. All that conversation is part of this. So it's just like a bigger piece that a lot of people in the community don't even know about. And so that's why, I stood, out there with other elected officials that also felt like we have to do something. We got to get the conversation going. Unfortunately, we wasn't successful with the legislation. But to me, that does open up the door to have conversation about this as we move forward. Because again, it feels like I'm going through the same battle that I went through 4 years ago. And everybody, anybody has a right to run for office. That's not what I'm saying. And it's not saying this is my seat and I should stay in it. I just feel like I should be treated fairly like other elected officials as well. And so that's where I have a issue.
So were you the only elected official in Marion County that had someone that challenged you in the pre-convention or slating?
In the let me see. It was just me by myself, and there's other trustees running. There's other offices that were on the ballot. You have your state rep, they're running. You also have your Marion County individuals, the clerk and the recorder. You also have, the auditor running. So, out of all those offices, little trustee Annette Johnson is the only one. So there was that one contested race. And that's another reason why I decided not to go through. I don't want to go through a pre-primary convention and I'm battling by myself, going up against individuals where I know I do not have the vote, because again, it's a small group of people that would be voting at that convention. And I didn't have any of those votes. I made phone calls, I sent out letters, talked to people, and they pretty much, were on the other person's side.
So you go through, or was, talking about going through the process, but you kind of knew that if I go through this process, I'm not going to, win.
Well, if I went through that process on that date, there was no way I was going to win that slating, because I didn't have any votes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did have some votes.
Right.
But the way I counted up the votes, because you call people, it would have been 60-40. So 40% would have went to me and 60 to the other person, and I just felt that's just not good odds.
Right.
Even if it's 50-50, 1 or 2 votes can determine.
Right.
And it just was just too close to call, and it just seems like all my thing again is, to me, the disrespect that I am the incumbent.
Right.
And I'm back at this again fighting the party that's supposed to be a democracy.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about, Annette, what you have done over the last 4 years. When you went in as the, Pike Township Trustee, what were some of your goals? What were some of the things that you wanted to try to accomplish? And what are you most proud about that you have done since you have been in office?
Well, I mean, I'm most proud of the transparency of the office. The office is very transparent. I'm a trustee that's out in the community, very involved in homeowner association meetings, very involved with other community meetings. The connections I made with the clergy, our faith-based groups in Pike Township. One big component of this is the trustee's office actually has a website. I can't imagine when I took over, why didn't the trustee's office have a website? That way you're able to put the applications online, put information, what the trustee's office is doing, what type of services we offer.
What kind of services does the trustee office offer to people who live in Pike Township?
Well, again, I like to tell people the trustee's office is another layer of help for individuals. Okay. And so we provide emergency assistance. That means we make sure something is done, for you within 3 days, 72 hours. And that would be in the form of rental, so you don't get eviction. And with COVID-19, that was such a challenging time for me. As a year, about 18 months, almost 2 years, that my trustee's office had to deal with COVID. So just imagine coming into the office in 2019, working on all the different things I wanted to, and then COVID hits. It's just really amazing how we, did get through all that. But pay the rentals, mortgages, your utility bills, again, prescription drug. I work with Pike School District to supply uniforms to students. So we do uniform vouchers for the kids. One of the big pieces I've done is actually put a food pantry on the site of the trustee's office. And we have 9 township trustees in Marion County, and I'm the only one that has a food pantry on site of the office. Because in the past, don't get me wrong, all the other trustees do help in the areas of food. Right. Making sure residents have food, would there be vouchers or food giveaways or gift cards. But just imagine actually having a food pantry on site. So when you do come to the trustee's office with your application process, you also leave home that day with food, because you're already struggling to pay your bills. Your money may go to all the bills, and then you don't have anything left to get groceries and food. I want to make sure when residents come, they were able to take home food with them. And it even came bigger than that. Kroger's, which is located we have a Kroger's, grocery store in Pike. They even came alongside me, and they give me $25 gift cards, food cards. And so the residents get those as well, because I may not have some of the items that they may like to eat, but just imagine giving them $25. That's for essentials and things like that. So, it's just really just a wonderful partnership that I have with Kroger food stores.
Well, that's just, as you talk about that, there's a lot that you are doing in the community as the trustee. And I want to be right back with Annette Johnson, Pike Township Trustee. We'll be back and continue our conversation. Welcome. This is Reverend Charles Harrison, and this is Real Talk on my podcast that I do every week. Let's continue our conversation with Annette Johnson, Pike Township Trustee. Annette, let's talk a little bit about the issue of diversity within Pike Township. Can you talk a little bit about that, the issue of diversity? That is a big issue today, making sure that the office place is diverse and everything that you have authority over. What has been your work in that area?
Well, thank you for those wonderful questions about diversity. Pike Township is called the international marketplace of diversity because you have just about every ethnic group lives in Pike Township. So, why not have a fire department or personnel that look like its community? So one of the things that I made sure that I did when I took over, on January the 1st, 2019, is to put together a large recruit class. And so that's important that people know that you need to recruit because firefighters retire. And so as they retire, you want to make sure that you're putting back. And that was one of the issues that I would hear out in the community when I was running for office, that they may try and take the fire department. It doesn't look like a fire department. Our numbers are low in that area. So I just aggressively made sure that first recruit class, which was 2019, had the largest amount of individuals that graduated. It was men, women, African American, so forth. Because again, there was a lot of talk about just handing over the fire department. But Pike Township is such a vast community, and everyone is just so engaged, and they love to have I would say services in the township, and trying to take away the fire department, they just wasn't going to have it.
So when you talk about taking away the fire department for our listeners, taking them away to become a part of the Indianapolis
IFD.
Okay.
So you consolidate.
So it was a consolidation. So what kind of pressures was on you? Because we do have a Democratic mayor, and I know some of the other townships have done
they
that.
Have pretty much caved in.
Okay. So you did not cave in.
I did not cave in.
Okay. So there's a lot of pressure for you to cave in. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Well, of course, you have two sides of the story. The Marion County feels like, Pike Township fire department should be part of IFD. It's a large tax base that the mayor's area would have and be able to control. But again, the residents of Pike Township are just pretty adamant that that's just not something they wanted. So when I did win the election, there was a lot of talk about that. And so that was one of my biggest concerns. So once we got in there, I said we got to make, our fire department look like a fire department. We got to have hiring classes, recruit classes. So I can say that I'm very proud that I have had a recruit class every year, 2019, 2020, 21, and I'll be starting a recruit class this year. So just imagine a trustee that's in this office that has done a recruit class every year. And African American recruitment has went up. When I took over, we did our data. And so from a 10-year span, just imagine this, a 10-year span, the needle for diversity firefighters was 1.8%. And just within my 3 years, just 3 years, 19, 20, 21, I moved the needle to 5%.
Wow.
And so just imagine if I'm in there another 4 years, another 5%, that would be a 10% increase in diversity with African American women as well. And, the Hispanic community as well. We are bringing those individuals into the fire department. So when you look at our I would say our year-ending picture, the calendar picture with all the staff, you're going to see individuals that look like you that also live and work in that community. Because I've been a really strong component of recruiting individuals that also live in the township. How wonderful is that you go into the store, you go shopping, drugstore, and you see your firefighters. They also live here too. Right. And so I'm a really big component of that as well.
So how Pike Township is one of the larger townships in the city?
Yes. Yes.
So your goal is really to create this diversity that reflects the community.
And it's going so well. I mean, we've just bumped. I mean, just imagine 5%. And I didn't know till we did the data.
Right.
Because I put the question. I was like, well, how much have I done? Because I knew it was 1.8, and when we got our totals back, I said 5%.
Wow.
I was just so happy, and it's a continuation. We're doing a hiring, again now, and it's going on. So we will have individuals. we put together a hiring group of diverse individuals. I mean, I'm really, like I said, aggressive on this. I want individuals that are part of the hiring process to look like the individuals that they serve in the community as well. We will be having information out on the various radio stations. I'm going to have some individuals go speak to my African American community, and talk about hiring, what we're looking for, and how you can apply to be a firefighter.
So what have you done, your office and the fire department, to recruit and appeal to women, people of color to be a part of the fire department?
Well, that's why it's important that I have the website.
Okay.
I'm able to put information on the website. The fire department has a website. So we have two entities of websites that's getting this information out. They will be going to the Pike schools, to see if we can recruit some individuals that will be graduating, and going on to other aspects. We also will be going again on radio stations and hopefully on some news media to, 5-minute interview, just sharing, with my fire chief, talking about we're hiring. And we even have the QR code now for the hiring, because we know the younger group, that's how you get to them, with QR codes. And that QR code, on their phone, the application comes up immediately and they can just fill out the application that way. So that's why we're just really trying to be very innovative in how we get out in our communities and attract some good candidates.
As the mini mayor of Pike Township, because you are like a mayor, what becomes your role in the area of education, particularly Pike Township, and certainly as a parent myself of two teenage children, education is for parents is also always an important issue. What is your role in working with the school board? Because I know they have a school board, a superintendent of schools. What becomes the role of the office of Pike Township Trustee?
I think, the role that I serve is to make sure we have some awesome candidates running for the school board. Me being out in the community, I get to see and hear a lot. Very important that I attend the various school board meetings, educational forums that they had. They just had one this past Tuesday where there was the talk about a referendum that we may have to put out to our community, and why it's important that you do it because you think about the future.
Okay.
If you're able to have monies that are going to go to programs and curriculum and STEM and all that, it's only can benefit the community. And maybe these young people or young students will come back in the community and give back and live in their community and work in their community. So I know we have a lot of residents in Pike Township that don't have school-age kids. But again, think about, how we're trying to uplift our society in the 5 to 10 years down the road after they, get out, of school, hopefully go to college or military. So I think it's important as a trustee to keep those conversations going and be a supporter of the school district as well. I mean, Pike Schools is such a great school district, and we want to keep it like that because we want individuals to move into Pike Township, raise their families, raise their kids, but they won't do that if we don't have a good school corporation where the parents feel comfortable with, moving to Pike Township.
I heard one of the issues that some of your critics have tried to raise is the whole issue, and could you explain to the listeners about the surplus money that you have in Pike and to provide clarity for that, because I think some people have tried to make it seem like you're holding on to money.
Right. Well, again, that was conversations that was had with the previous trustee, because you gotta, we fast forward. Nobody thought I was going to win.
Right.
Who would have thought that Annette Johnson was going to win?
They didn't think you was going to win.
Right. So these conversations had already taken place with our city councilors, and people have to understand, sometimes we have big corporations that reside in our townships, but they offer so much. Right. And they can give back to the community. I mean, you can't let corporations just move out, because in the past, I just don't see any other corporation coming in and taking that spot. Right. And so I know it could be 50-50. We got to give a little, we got to take a little. But it's with the Cortiva agriculture group that's located in Pike Township and has been in Pike Township for many, many years, large. And so prior to me taking on the trustee role, again, there had been some type of deals that were made with TIF monies where Cortevia was, given some tax breaks.
Okay.
And so my role in it, again, the monies is to go to the school district of Pike.
Okay.
And then the fire side.
Okay.
Again, not the trustee side.
Okay.
Of course, I'm the trustee and the overseer of the fire department.
Right.
But what I did was very innovative, and I did it with City Councilor Leroy Robinson. He was pretty helpful in that aspect of it because he was.
Okay.
I did put 4 components in writing to the CFO through the mayor's office that I did want them to make sure, I wasn't part of this conversation or the deal, but since I'm taking over as trustee, if there was 4 components that they could add in the next, 3 to 4 years. And one was, of course, the monies for the fire side, fire department. Want to make sure engines, if we needed monies. The IT area, we wanted to upgrade our IT because think about it. When you're calling a fire department, you got a fire,
right,
or your loved one may have fell out.
Right.
It's minutes, seconds between life and death. So I wanted to upgrade our IT department and also the IT department on the trustee side. And that's where you got the websites and all that.
Okay.
And then also monies hopefully would come to the trustee's office to help in the area of poor relief.
Okay.
And so those are 4 components that we did put in writing.
Okay.
That wasn't there at first.
Right.
And so that's where I'm working to see what we can do to make sure that monies comes in those 4 areas of the trustee's office. And like I said, I can't control the school side, but I do know in my conversations with, educators, they really wanted to work on the STEM program with Pike schools because that's a new way of learning that a lot of students are very involved in STEM.
Well, one of the things that you ought to pat yourself on the back is that you fought, and I remember some of the conversations to keep IMPD Northwest District in Pike. Yes. You fought. So I know there were other neighborhoods that wanted to snatch it from you, and they now have a new building. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, just you know me, I'm an advocate. I'm going to fight. Yeah. I know a lot of people. I think that's what they like about me. Even though I'm the trustee, I'm an advocate. So I'm always in the community fighting for whatever is going to make our community better. So, really fought hard. And I came up with some innovative ideas. Like, at the trustee's office, I have so many people coming in and out. Let's have, a sheet at the trustee's office where they could sign petitions to keep it. Let's send out letters from all of leaders in the community. So I put together a letter, campaign where elected officials that represent Pike and leaders would fill out letters. And I thought if we had letters and we had petitions from residents, how can we lose this in our community? Because we're showing, IMPD and the mayor's office that this is a jewel that we want to keep. We want our police department to have a building where they can have a community room, meetings. And so it's a win-win for, both sides. It's a win-win for the, IMPD district headquarters. They get a beautiful new building, but it's also a win on the community side to have community meetings. And also a community investor, a Pike Township, donated that, the land. I mean, you can't go wrong there. And that's how other communities may look at Pike like, well, maybe we can do that. And I'm hoping that's how they look at stuff. But you got to have those relationships with the community investors and businesses that you can just go and talk and say, hey, can we have this land? You're not using it. Do you think you could donate it back to the community? Those are the type of things that I think a mini mayor should be doing.
Okay, a mini mayor. Well, Trustee Annette Johnson, we want to thank you so much for joining us today on Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison. This has been a very enlightening conversation we have had today. I want to say this to all the listeners. I am a supporter.
May 3rd, primary.
Yes, of Trustee Pike Township Trustee Annette Johnson. So I think she's one of the stars and great leaders in our city.
Thank you.
This is Reverend Charles Harrison, and this has been Real Talk. Join me next time as I bring more Real Talk about the real issues that affect our community here in Indianapolis and across the country. And next week on my show, we will have IMPD Chief Randy Taylor and Assistant IMPD Chief Chris Bailey joining me as we talk about the issue of crime and violence in Indianapolis, as we have seen 7 years of the highest level of violence in the history of Indianapolis, and what our great police department is doing to help bring those numbers down, along with the mayor's office and community groups across the city. This is Reverend Harrison with Real Talk. Have a blessed and wonderful day.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
And be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Online now at allindianapodcast.com.